the most exciting presentation.
You should have pillows in front of you, so when your head
Just lightly touches down.
Actually, I wanted to talk to you yesterday, but you were on the phone, and then when I came in, I was gone.
You might be on.
Maybe
Yeah, no
you
worries.
were.
Yeah. just have one of those.
You know what happened, or do I have to tell you?
I heard.
It should be on or join us. We will kick this off.
So Melissa, I will set that up and email you both. Let's send which day.
I'll have to get a chance to so we can follow that. first.
15 to 16s are better.
Okay, that's what I'll shoot for, and then if that goes bad, we'll do something else.
Okay. So. Kind of walk through. We've got it up there. I'm just going to follow along up there. Okay, so we will. We've got Heather who's coming shortly, and William who will be joining, who's watching virtually, and who will be joining us at 5 when he gets out of work. And so we will kick off the first 2022 budget workshop. It was scheduled for 4 p.m. Today on September 7th. Our lineup today is assessment, planning and development, tax, and highway. So we've got everybody scheduled for 30-minute increments. How things long as it takes. We'll see if folks are in the building and want to stop by if we get to them a little early. But basically,
Can
this.
I sit next to you so I can see?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, feel free to move around.
Don't forget your mouth.
So these budget workshops are an opportunity for us to hear from the department heads, have a conversation about their budgets as they are presented to us, so that we can continue to work towards building our budget for this year. And so we are going to start with assessment. So Mr. Duffy.
We had a preliminary meeting with John and Heather last Thursday,
I think so, yeah.
and went over. This is going to be the first time that this budget is, other than personnel, is going up. First time in about 8 years. But there's some inflationary pressures coming into play here, so I'll go over that. And so far as personnel is concerned, I'm putting in the guidance that was provided, the 4% increase. So there should be no shock there. Our contractual, keeping that at $1,100. The office supplies, we're seeing inflationary pressures coming to bear on this one here. So there's just not much we can do with that. So I've being very conservative about it, going with the $2,300. Conferences, I'm looking for an increase from 4,000 up to 6,800. As you know, just about a year ago, we hired on 2 new people in my office. They were not budgeted for any training last year. I wanted them to get in on the ground, get their feet wet before we start putting them into the classroom. So this year I am budgeting for at least a 1-day seminar, a 1-week class potentially, and also sending pretty much everyone down to Cornell, shutting down the office for a week for attendance down there. To offset the increase, it's not a big offset, but I'm also looking to increase the dues from $720 up to $800. And what I'd like to do there is buy membership for Ryan and Pilar in the New York State Assessors Association. By spending $125 each, the $250 will actually wind up saving $870 on the expenses. There's a discount for membership and the association and the classes that are offered. So spend 250, save 870.
That's a great idea.
So that was the association and dues. Infotech stays the same at 2,000, and the printing of the tax bills stays at $29,000.
So just anybody who's watching or who received the budget digitally, the one that we're showing up on the screen has 1,000 for Infotech. We did have a conversation though, that is at 2,000 now.
That is
As
correct.
it was, I think, in the previous year, right?
Yes, sir.
What is that? Infotech?
The Infotech.
So the printing, what I've heard is there are inflationary pressures there also. Can you do the printing for the same amount as previous year?
No. The printing, we get it from the county, and it actually covers a multitude of things. It covers the printing of the tax bills, which hasn't changed. Let me back up. The county charges $2 per parcel per year.
Okay.
And I first became an assessor in 1995, and back then the county was charging $2 per parcel per year.
So they haven't figured it out yet.
So no, it hasn't changed at all in terms of the per parcel cost. And as I said, what that does is it gets it prints the school bills, it prints the county and town bills, it gives us the tax maps, it gives us the tentative roll and the final roll, and all of the notices that go along with that for to be mailed out.
Thank you, Onondaga County.
Pardon me?
Thank you, Onondaga County.
Yes. Life made easy.
So does anybody have any questions?
Tell us, I know you went to Cornell. What is the training at Cornell and why is Cornell doing it?
Well, Cornell isn't necessarily doing it. It's the New York State Assessors Association that does the training down there. Usually it's on campus. A lot of the classes are on campus. We haven't been able to get on campus because of COVID, and they still have some restrictions going into play there. When I first started taking courses to become certified as an assessor, I took them with New York State, the Office of Real Property Tax Services, Forbes or EDA, it doesn't matter. But the training was conducted by mostly by people who had never served in an assessor's office before. So they sat down, read a book, and then they stood up and taught the class. You go down to Cornell and it's taught by assessors. And what the assessors will do is they'll teach you, this is what you need to survive the basic courses. And here's what you need to survive in the office. So they take actual real world scenarios and apply it to the teaching points. It's phenomenal training. It really is. And I'm disqualifying myself as one of the instructors down there, but I do teach down there from time to time.
So Cornell is just because it's centrally located in the state.
Centrally located, and it really does offer some of the best training possible. And we've got, we had Jennifer Abbott, who for some reason followed her fiance down to Texas, but we got her trained up as a state certified candidate for assessor. We've got Kristen Howe right now. She's one class away from being certified, and we'll put both Pilar and Ryan on the track for getting certified as well.
That's fantastic.
So I mean, it's hard to make anything too exotic in these, isn't it?
I'm just boring. What can I say?
When it comes to the budget, boring is pretty nice.
Yes.
There wasn't anything that you kept out of here that you would be looking for? This is really everything that you guys were looking for?
Well, we did talk about the GIS.
Yeah, that's going to be a longer term project.
There was some other software that I was looking at, but again, I can hold off on that for another year.
Okay.
So, I don't want to push my luck. Like I said, I've gone for 8 years without change, other than the personnel. I haven't changed anything. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling awkward coming in here and saying I need more this year.
I mean, the things we're saying though, it's outside of the office supplies, it's all personnel. It's really personnel costs. We have personnel that need training that, the association dues, and the only other increase that isn't personnel based is the $800 for office supplies, and that's really not in your control anyway.
But I think the GIS is something that we plan to do just in a different line.
Yeah, that'll be, ideally, the initial rollout will be ARPA funded, and then we'll be able to absorb that cost in other parts of the budget.
Also.
Any other
Okay.
questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, actually, I don't know if this is part of their budget though, it's the Board of Assessment review for doing more.
Oh, that is, okay. So for the Board of Assessment, a couple of things, in Board of Assessment review, just not related to budget, but we need to make, there's a change at the end of September, right? We have to decide if we're renewing somebody.
Correct.
Yes,
So-
yeah, that's you.
so
that's
we
on
need to
my
do
calendar.
that.
Yeah,
So keep that in mind if there's somebody,
we need to open the applications up and everything.
yeah, we need to do that. And then, but also if we want to provide them with training or if there's any additional expenses related to their service, because they did more hours this year than previously, correct?
It was a pretty heavy year.
They felt it was heavy.
The training, that comes compliments of the county.
Okay.
That's set by law. The county director of real property tax services has to provide the training.
So then I think it's just, we need to get it on our calendar to post the potential opening.
And then we'll have to take a look and see, if we expect it to continue to be a heavy load. Just understanding if we need to increase that budget.
Well, right now it's 3 people,
Mhm.
we could go to 5.
Oh, you want to, that's a different question.
Yeah, but as far as how much time was spent in the many meetings that were had, we'll have to look and see if that needs an adjustment.
Okay.
But I think Elaine's raising a different question, which is going from 3 to 5 members. That would absolutely increase the cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to be thinking.
Just a thing, yeah, like I think, thing to think about as we go through the budget process. Yeah, that's it, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Where's that written?
I will.
So next would be Tom.
Let's see if he is available.
I can rub it in.
Okay, that sounds good.
So Joel comes in. Does he want to meet us? Or he just said.
No, we're good. We're good. Probably just do that way too, so we can have, you know what I mean?
Give him a should drive by to see. how the
What the
grass is.
approach is, yeah. We might be best off parking in the northern area,
Mhm.
what we did last time,
Yeah.
and then maybe just walk out. the
Yeah.
street,
That's what I'm thinking.
Rather than trying to cross that street.
Yeah, no, I'd walk along.
Or come up, even, well, maybe we could park in the neighborhood.
Well, I think we could walk, where we could park is at the center.
Oh, yeah.
So that's probably, if we go in one car, we could just park. at the
Yeah,
center.
that sounds good.
Are we still alive?
We'll stay alive until, hoorah, so.
Can you, light up the notifications?
No attendees, and then it's me, that computer and Heather. Who's he available?
Oh, good.
I'm still using MJ.
Hmm?
Still using MJ.
Mhm.
In the large area.
Oh,
And PV.
Yeah, there's gonna be some, because we want to divorce that a little bit and make sure that, everyone's got a different, everyone that's using engineering has that line item in their budget rather than just being one lump sum. And yeah, as far as the MJ and Miller, based on what we've seen, we're gonna talk to Tom about making sure that he has some, but we've drastically shifted a lot of the needs of the planning and development. That's No worries.
Legal and Spirit Williams County Williams.
Board, how's everyone doing today?
We're well, how are you?
Good. Just give me one sec. I'm trying to, I know I have a digital copy of it, and I'm just gonna make sure that I can pull that up.
So I spoke with Ann before. We'll get this finalized and into the budget program after this meeting.
Perfect. Okey-dokey.
So the planning and development budget from last year hasn't changed too much. There were some items in here where they kind of were new hire for myself as code enforcement officer, but Lisa, Dave, Mike, clerks, all standard for our budget with the proposed increase that was added. The one item for contractual that I put in here, which will be probably the largest change, will go to, I had put aside 25,000 for MJ for everything that would be required throughout the year that would, the planning and development department would need from the town engineer. Also, money set aside for Miller Engineering for any items that he would just have knowledge on locally.
Yep.
Previously, there was the comprehensive plan in there. I don't know if any money needs to be set aside for that moving forward.
That's a good question. I would say yes, but I don't have a dollar figure, so let me get that for you.
Okay. Moving, so that was really it. The comprehensive plan, the CFA climate smart sustainable revenue offset was in there also. Other items moving down the list: office supplies, day-to-day office supplies, trainings and conferences. The Builders Conference, Onondaga County Planning Federation. One of the big ones that I was going to look into, because New York State offers training online for code enforcement officers, is the Certified Floodplain Manager Program, which I put in here at the very end. So Floodplain Manager Program, which would allow the town, if the town does that, we would have training and access for all the employees, code enforcement officers, myself, anybody, for floodplain management. So I think that's a good one that we could look into, at least getting started with training through.
Are you on the email to see the 3 classes that are coming up later this month on floodplain?
I am not, but I will,
Okay, I will
Okay.
forward that to you.
please. Next on the list, association dues and books and publications. I spoke with Jan about this previously. We can be members of the International Code Council, which offsets books for code books. We can buy them outright, but there is, whether it be ASCE, which is American Society of Civil Engineering, just publications that come up that we need to reference that we'll be purchasing. So again, that was pretty standard. The code cycle, continuing with that, whether it comes out of either one, however that money comes out for the next code cycle.
When do you expect New York State to release another set?
I'm not expecting next year, but it does not mean that it couldn't. I'm assuming they're gonna go with 2025 because the next International Code Council is 2024, and they would want time to review that and put them. But the ICC allows for, again, the town allows myself and allows us to be part of that for any type of training or any bulletins that they're going to put out for us. Information and technology, MapLink tablets, IPS maintenance, that last year. Yeah, so that allowed for continuation of that, and then one of the items that I spoke about previously was we had, as a town, committed to Laserfish as using it as their document management system. Getting either training or having someone come in that can help us make it so we're not doing double the work with it, really utilizing that moving forward for our document management system, for all of our permits, all of our minutes, records.
And we had talked about some existing documents that aren't in Laserfish, that it is very likely, given how capacity works in planning and development, that we would be looking to Laserfish for some type of professional migration over from that other system, so that we're all up to date, everything's in Laserfish.
So is that included in that 15,000?
Yes,
So right now we're using Laserfish, and then what else are we using?
we use IPS as the permitting software, but Laserfish is where all of the ZBA documents, planning board, older permits are being scanned in. Again, that's through our department, but also with Allison and the clerks as the document. Yes.
Yeah, and so, we've got some old stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. The migration process is cumbersome. So we're gonna reach out and see if there's an opportunity to have someone, whether it be on-site or remote, to be able to help with that type of stuff.
I think that will also help when they are doing foils in the clerk's office, when we are doing zoning compliance letters, that when we were having to kind of pull from all over the place, if we can have if we can start utilizing Laserfish more, we're going to one place instead of having to pull from a bunch of places. And I think that throughout multiple departments will ease some of our, when we're searching for documents for these letters. The next one down, phone, has stayed the same. So cell phone reimbursement, following that, uniform cleaning, OSHA approved clothing, boots, damaged clothing, protective gear, and community relations for the CNY Stormwater Coalition. Any questions with that?
I don't think so. So you have your travel expenses at 0. Is that, are the trainings and conferences are there gonna be associated travel expenses with those?
We were using either our own vehicles just to go there, or a town vehicle to travel to those.
Okay. Do you feel, I mean, I know the current situation with the town vehicles isn't perfect, to say the least. Would we want to look at, do you know where the conferences will be this year?
Liverpool, depending on where we're going, there are some conferences that would, for Dave or for Mike, would be more geared towards the fire inspection side of it, which would be offered by fire departments. So that's down by Watkins Glen. I know they offer conferences down there, so they're all local to the central area of New York, but
But
whether they go,
You don't submit for mileage, even when you're using your own vehicles?
or did you maybe consider that under the training and conferences line?
yeah, it's not, because we're outside of work hours, we're clocking in there, so whether we use a work vehicle, which is what I did previously, or it would be, we're kind of driving, I don't clock in when I drive into work.
So I think if
Right.
theoretically, if they went to Watkins Glen, they would take a town car and that would just be the lunch.
Right, in those situations.
But
where-
if the town car was non-viable, we would make an alternative.
I can add money into that. I can add
Let's-
$500. I think that would cover our expenses for.
I think we should plan on
Yeah.
doing that, just
it's
making
better
sure.
everywhere.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that,
I don't, okay, I'm not,
just to make sure that you guys do have something in there for, let's say the truck isn't working that day and you gotta take your own vehicle, making sure that we have something in there for mileage reimbursement, I think is a good idea.
Okay,
But we can talk, we'll talk about what conferences are coming up and we'll just see, we'll kind of try to come up with a good figure and then we'll kind of just move with that as we need to.
Yeah, there's like a calculation on that.
Yeah, yeah.
There's those IRS mileage rates and what about when you have to go out on sites to look at things?
That's town
Is it-
vehicle.
Yeah,
But if
that's all.
there's not town vehicles.
We have a town vehicle.
Yeah, they're,
Always available.
Yeah.
for the most
And
part,
he's got,
yes.
they're his, you know.
Yeah.
They're
He's
not
got-
his,
yeah, they've got
they're
it.
his. They're planning and development vehicles.
And we're
Oh.
going to hopefully get electric ones too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we were
We
buying
had a
those.
plan.
I forgot we were buying those. Because he mentioned that they drive their personal vehicle sometimes, so that's where I was going, getting it from.
So yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll make sure that, just that way for safety, if, you know, for some reason that one of the vehicles aren't available, that way there is something there for mileage reimbursement.
Okay. The planning board end of it did not change. I had the proposed increase for the personal services, which include the member, the chair, the members, and the secretary.
So that 38 figure does include that?
Yes, includes the proposed increase.
I'm. So where's the contractual for the engineer assigned to the planning board?
That is what we are going
Yeah.
to work on with Matt Dunn.
They're gonna have, it will either be on the 400 line contractual,
Mhm.
that's what it be, or we'd have to add a new budget line called engineer.
Yeah, probably contractual makes a lot of sense for that.
So that's what it'll be.
So-
Virtual and planning.
Oh,
Yeah, which we've had some conversations about what that
So
looks
there
like.
isn't a number already for that?
Not,
There's never been engineer with the planning board. It's
Yeah.
Always been associated with planning and development. Well, and when you had your former engineer, there was a contract.
yeah, it was all
It didn't-
together.
Right, but
So
wouldn't
we-
the number just be 400? Because it's contraction.
That's what I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
unless you wanted it.
No, I
specifically
no, I think
delineated.
that was
Yeah,
not
we'll do it the easy way. And we had talked, you know, we've had some conversations about what exactly that looks like. We want to make sure, generally speaking, what the planning board engineer does is going to be largely reimbursed by the
Mhm.
applicants. But we do want to make sure that there is some, you know, that way we can really understand, you know, what does it cost the planning board for meeting attendance, for agenda meeting attendance, and then for any of the stuff that they do that isn't specifically reimbursable, understanding what those things are, and then making sure that they have enough of a budget.
Okay, so this is, so we don't have.
Yeah,
the
we'll
number
have-
for that
yeah,
yet.
we'll have that.
Okay, so
Well-
right now that number is coming out of the contractual under planning and development. But we're
Yes.
moving.
Yeah, right now, everything with engineering
Yeah.
comes out of that 400 line under planning and development. And the goal is, you know, we're gonna talk to, the idea is that, you know, yes, this will drastically lower the planning and development budget and add some increases to other budgets, but the goal here is to make it so that, you know, it's reflective of how where those engineering services are being used. And I think we had talked, I think in the $5,000 or $6,000 range for planning board, because they do have all the meetings, all the agenda meetings where they do need the engineer there.
But, okay, and wouldn't we still want to put the full amount in the expense and then put money in revenue? That's what the developers pay to trust the agency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no way to forecast
And
that.
that's a trusted agency account, so that's not a revenue in your main budget.
Yeah,
So,
this is just for the
The non-
overall
right.
Yeah.
non-billable hours.
Non-reimbursable.
Yeah, the bulk of it's gonna be agenda
so
meetings.
that,
and
so that
minutes.
that amount, the amount of money that will likely end up happening for both revenue and expense under planning for various developers that come around
There is,
will not appear in the budget.
Yeah. Yeah,
no, it's the developer like deposits,
Mhm.
that's a trusted agency, so you don't see that because it's not a budgetary line.
Mhm.
It is other people's money.
Right.
So we just draw on that when an invoice needs to be paid.
So from the point of view of management of the department, however, do we have some kind of trend figure, averages or whatever, so that Tom knows what to manage for that?
I
Well,
think
no,
we could
'cause
probably
that-
break it down, but it would just be a shot in the dark for what next year, if
What
next year's
projects
got.
Will be before you, I mean, it could be 0 projects, you could have 100, you could
Yeah.
have 10,
Yeah,
you
but
know.
we have, We have 20 years of experience. We know what's likely to
So,
occur.
like right now, so for the revenue for the planning and development from the 2022 budget, like we had 60,000 for building and permits. Does that look like it'll remain the same?
For permitting.
I mean, if some of these larger projects come through, then it's hard to say. I mean, because all of our revenue is based on the cost of a project, so if we have another year where we only build 5 new homes here or something of that nature, then know that just the new home itself would severely,
Yeah.
but if you get another retirement center, or you get some of the
Or even
other,
just some of the big projects we have doing the
Yeah.
zone
Definitely
change process
building,
now.
For sure.
so I would be,
That's where you're gonna look at your trends.
Yeah.
That's where you're gonna.
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, we'll be able to get a good sense of that.
Um,
And
some of them are probably gonna spike higher in the past years, but with some of the really large projects, but we're seeing some of them still coming, some other large projects coming through. Might not be this year, but next year, yeah, definitely, we could probably do a 3-year forecast. from
That's
what
what I
we-
mean.
Yeah.
what-
Some kind of
what we
Get a good
heard
predictability,
from
yes.
developers
You
coming
can't
through.
know for sure what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get a new town center every year.
And generally speaking too, when we get those bigger projects, a lot of that permitting fee is gonna be spent on like engineering, because you're gonna send that out to our engineer for like a specifically the HVAC stuff. You know, that does need to be done out of house with some professionals. So, you know, I think it's similar to the trusted agency stuff where it's really just, we bring in more revenue and we spend more. And it's hard to budget for, but we'll sit down and we'll try to get a good sense of what it's gonna look like over the next year.
Yeah, because we can look through the meetings this year to get the meeting fee.
Yeah.
So that'll be good, and then,
I'll put something together for the past
Yeah,
5
Data from 2009, 2022.
great.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can get a pretty good sense of that.
Yeah,
Thank
and I
you.
think that's a good point, because if there was one big development, if you take like a 10-year span like that, you.
Yeah, you won't,
notice
yeah,
that.
you won't even notice it.
alright, so my question, I just had a question more going back to the town engineering line. So going from 25 grand, which is what we spent or budgeted for 2022, going to 30. I didn't know like if we really needed that increase, but currently we're at a little under 7,000 for our town's engineering. So again, just looking at that thing like,
In this line here,
not this line, but our line.
on
on
the town,
A,
yeah.
On
The
A,
A line.
yeah.
There is, so throughout that, I took that off because it was the A fund, but there's also the landfill monitoring,
So that was my other question as well, yeah.
and then,
Because the landfill monitoring is also 18 grand that we budgeted for, and we have a contract with analytics, right? But that contract's up this year, so we go out to bid again, I believe, and we go.
Or
out
look to
bid
extend it, yeah.
with all that stuff. So we need to look at that. But I also know that line is missing like different charges for the 18 grand, like some of the engineering costs are not there, so we need to like look at that. To see where we-
Strictly for landfill.
Right, but the contract from the testing site is approximately 13 grand for the year.
Because then you have oversight by.
Right, and that's what's missing on the line for this year right now. Figure it out so that we know the actual versus the budget. And then my only other question was the comprehensive planning, taking that out, and looks like we did that, so those are my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you'll get a better sense of what costs there would be for comprehensive planning that are outstanding for
Yeah.
next year.
So the landfill monitoring, we don't anticipate it changing, we just need to extend the contract or rebid it.
I just know it was for 2020 to 2022, so.
We'll take a look at it.
And then for town engineer, and the A fund,
In the A fund, I don't know if we need to increase it from 25.
I doubt it. But
Right.
if it's only spent 7 so far, we need to work. on
Yeah, we
some
can have
invoicing.
we
So
can look at what's on the table and
especially for bringing that the charges back to where they need to be, where it's under planning development and then planning board, then that line potentially could.
And another thing about engineering is that some of the work that the town engineer does are actually charged to the drainage district.
That's right.
And that's something that else we're trying to, Yeah.
So that would be another piece of where you might say, I know he was here doing something, and it gets charged to the drainage district, so you don't actually see it in the A fund.
advertising, similar conferences, attorney. We know that those costs. So then I guess zoning is the next one on there.
Zoning, again, you see the proposed increase for personal services, and the remainder stays the same,
So
and they have not.
who are the seminars that the planning board and the zoning board of appeals members go to?
I believe that's the Honolulu County Symposium.
County, yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's pretty affordable and it's just downtown.
Mhm.
Um,
That's great.
Oh, yeah, really, really great training, all things considered too.
And I have noticed some of the people there, so they do actually go to it.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. And then advertising's for the postings attorney.
I think I'll confirm whether the postage increase is really gonna affect those two line items, but I doubt for either of them, the postage increase is gonna drastically increase that. But again, it's not something that I think that can be reviewed if there is something that has to go out to 1,000 residents, if it's somewhere in a highly populated.
Yeah,
area
for
or
some, and
something
for
like
some of the
that.
bigger
I can't-
projects.
We can't foresee that, but this is what
Yeah, typically.
they've been running with for the past couple years.
Last year, we changed, the ZBA changed to say that they would meet twice a month in the summer. Do you know if that, if that happened enough that it actually impacted the budget? Because they also cancel sometimes when there's nothing, so.
We had been operating on once,
Mhm.
so I don't, if they haven't done, I haven't,
They haven't needed
no,
to
they
do it.
haven't,
Here,
no.
let me take a look at,
So they have the option, but they're not using it.
I think sometimes it'd be beneficial, but when applicants bring their
Mhm.
application in, though they don't have paperwork given to them, they know it's coming, and it's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah. I was just looking, we've had one ZBA meeting every month. And that's,
That
yeah, so
they
we can,
shouldn't really, it shouldn't push anybody's project back.
Right.
Whether it be a pool or something, it's generally less than 3 weeks.
so we can probably just look at what the actual is this year, and if we're on track,
That's what it sounds like.
yeah, we can just bring it back down, but otherwise, if it,
Well, I don't think we budgeted more money for it, because we thought they would cancel winter
Oh,
ones
I
and
see.
do summer ones instead.
yeah, so we're probably right on track.
I think
That would probably be a good idea for January, February.
Yeah, and then and it's really June maybe where everybody's contractor shows up at the same time.
Yes.
So we'll take a look at that.
And the planning board generally meets twice unless there's something.
Yeah, that's what they, yeah, pretty substantially larger. So then, yeah, I think talking to Lisa specifically about that advertising line, just to make sure, because I know they had some, a couple bigger ones this year, so we'll have to see if that we're still on track with that, with the cost to mail out. Because again, that's one of those things that just, we can have projects that require less than 100 mailings all year, and then we can have one that, requires 900 mailings. So we just have to make sure that we're feeling that that's adequate as is, and that it's not going to be a major impact. And then just a couple other things I wanted to note. So relevant to the assessment presentation, the GIS software, so that's something that we're looking at. That wouldn't be in this budget because the deployment of it on the initial maintenance will be through ARPA as a pretty major upgrade that includes a number of our departments. And then over time, we would, essentially, accept those into the normal standing budget as that piece of software becomes,
And I would say training on that side.
Yeah, and that's part of the ARPA proposal is to have that training in there as well. Because it's gonna be essential is making sure that we find the product that's gonna work best for us, and then as much cross-training as possible between assessment, planning, and development. And then also too, potentially on the software, some training for the clerk's office and for the tax office, because if we find a solution that kind of opens that up and makes it a lot easier and more accessible for folks, we're gonna wanna make sure everybody has the training that they need to use that software. Yeah, any other questions?
While we're talking about that, do you want to take a minute to just describe our plan for the ARPA evaluation? Because that survey you're in
It's
there,
in progress, it's
in-
not, it needs more.
Yeah, it needs some work, but we'll have,
It
so,
needs actual content.
yeah.
any,
So can we make a goal of next week to have
If
that?
people give me
yeah, we
content,
just gotta get some stuff back.
like you have to send it to me and I can change it.
Because I'd like to be, I mean, I think, given where we are in the budget cycle, it's important to get those
It's-
announcements out, so we have time to get the feedback back.
Ready to go, I just wanted to add one more, so some of the stuff for the highlight that you mentioned, I wanted to add that.
And then you
And then
want the
any
descriptive sentences.
Descriptions or stuff, the tricky part is like, it's just the sentence, like I can't add like.
Right.
If it's
Yeah, so we
really long,
gotta-
it's gonna be hard to read.
Mhm.
But if we add like the documents beforehand, they can look at it while they look at the survey, like kind of the best way to do it.
Sounds good.
So
Any-
Caitlin, you were gonna do a couple of those too, right?
Yeah, we'll take a look.
So we'll try to make sure we get that stuff to you so that could be maybe live at the next budget meeting. We could just, announce it.
Yeah, we can try to get that done.
And then get input back before we,
We do have, yeah, we have a little extra time, so it'll be, I think the biggest difficulty will be just getting it out to folks and making sure they're aware of it, but we
Right.
can,
But the best, like, is once we get it out and put it up there, then really push.
Yeah.
And once it's live, it's for school.
yeah, it makes sense. Hey, any other questions for Tom? Okay, Thank you very
Have a
much.
good rest of the night.
thing was saying, so we'll get it into the budget software, so it'll be it'll make a lot more sense.
Because it's just so hard to tell.
Yeah. I know William said he'll be here at 5, so we'll go get Lori. So if people want me to use the bathroom or anything like that.
I mean, if I get feedback that quick enough, I potentially get it done next.
14th. That's, yeah, what I'd like to do is be able to announce it with the public meeting on the 14th, so that we then get it in minutes, that this is the link to the thing,
Public meeting.
For the
board meeting.
board meeting afterwards. Because next week we have the,
Oh,
yeah.
we have a budget meeting next week before our meeting.
Yeah.
I am totally fine.
Yeah, it's a marathon
I
of
for some
the-
reason thought it went budget meeting, board meeting, budget meeting.
Yeah, it's before. So what I'd like to do is be able to put in the minutes of the September 14th board meeting to put the link to where the
Yeah,
survey
okay.
is.
Yeah, we
So
can do that. Yeah, it's just changing the descriptions to be.
a little bit more
yeah, a
descriptive.
little bit more.
And then
They're like,
I'll provide a link. Do we have a link just for the part we talked about ARPA? If you can give me the link, if you can cut that video to the ARPA part. that we
Which-
can- the-
which-
The discussion that we had.
Oh, yeah, I can
Oh,
click that.
the-
Yeah, I'll give you a YouTube link with a timestamp on it.
Perfect, because then I put that in the beginning before we take
Mhm.
it, along with like the paperwork that you
Yeah.
have, that little report. So they can kind of get more details and then they can do the survey.
So the big giant Google Doc thing.
Yeah.
Google Doc thing.
And then send it to you.
Mhm, okay.
Because then those details, although they might not be completely all there, they can find them.
One, it's important too, just to get a sense of what's going on. And that,
Yeah.
listen, we're not gonna give everybody, a 3-page report on each expenditure, but
Mhm.
we'll have enough so that we
Yeah.
can have a conversation about what people are interested in.
Yeah, if I could put like a little paragraph on it, or like a title of a paragraph and then add stuff. But the app is just not letting me. I'm not-
People are very eager to pay their taxes. This has been that.
We currently don't have a page on our website for our board of assessment,
Oh, okay.
so I would like to create one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Work on that. It was like on my list, and then I looked at the other, and I was like, oh, I never did this. Let me,
Sarah, is Sarah not in the room, guys?
She stepped out.
Thanks.
Yeah. William.
Their grilling meeting.
It was really interesting to be watching. on
Yeah.
YouTube. I get in the car and try to-
Any questions on the,
We met last week. Lori,
she's next.
that's my understanding.
Good. He's gonna get it into the budget software so that we have a better, like a more easy to understand version of it to see the changes and things like that. But yeah, other than that, some of the really the only big changes are gonna be the kind of re-proportioning the engineering line item so that it's where
Got a GIS program too.
so that's gonna be through ARPA. So we have to, I think Tom has a short list of some different programs we want to look at. But that's gonna be a process between him and Pat pretty closely to find something that's going to be able to, yeah, take take everything that we've got. And we, think I have an email out to the county. If not, I have to send one, to better understand what software they're using and see, in a lot of ways, it might make sense to just go towards that.
No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And they,
Well, because whatever they did, their whole, Dan, their GIS guy was able to like spit back bike route and sidewalk stuff like within 48 hours. So
Yeah.
whatever they're using is
Yeah.
very user friendly.
do you have like what they're using for like in their, reports? I can send it to you.
Yeah, you can do that, that'd be great. The one we're looking at is General Code does a lot of what we do, and apparently they've acquired Laserfish, I think is so they're, kind of grabbing everything, and they have a pretty impressive suite of tools that essentially it's meant to be a one-stop shop for municipalities. So we would look at probably bringing on the planning, zoning, and assessment type stuff. But then we would have the option to further expand into
One platform.
yeah, so you would really, anybody here at town hall would be able to bring up a property and really understand, as far as understanding, here are the variances they have, here's a link to this, here's, whether or not they have a dog license registered there, whether or not they have trash service, like quite a bit of stuff. And then the end goal there is they have a forward-facing portion so that you can self-serve as
Yeah,
a
from
resident.
home.
Yeah, yeah.
Would that-
Parcel information.
Take the place of MathLink.
Yeah, more than likely, or either that or MapLink would be integrated into that.
Yeah,
But the real, probably one of the biggest advantages of that would be having all of our information up to date in that system so that MapLink would immediately be updated. Once we add something to a parcel, it would ideally just, probably in a weekly cycle, update, push to MapLink, and MapLink would be fresh. And more than likely, if we get the forward-facing piece for the residents, they click on a parcel and they click on that, and it would open up that information. in
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the forward facing thing is. If it is, then we might not need the.
Yeah.
Christina. You did, yeah, we had it, she had it last week. Forwarded.
Where do you want? Oh, right here.
Hello.
Hey, how are you, my liaison? How are you?
Good to see you in the flesh.
I know. Well, I did see you in person a little while ago.
Are we talking bears? I just got this email to me an hour ago.
You know what? I have one that's got copy written on it and it's fairly similar to.
Thank you.
Oh,
And I've got
you're
to pull it
welcome.
up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
it'll be
I
on the
just-
No worries.
Yeah, but I wasn't.
Okay. Major change that you'll see from last year would be under the equipment line. We've been talking about, I've talked to William, I've talked to, John, about getting a new letter opener for my office. And Kay was very helpful, going through Pitney Bowes, who does our mail machine. Thought maybe we could get a decent price on one because we already lease, mail machine. The lease price, was a 60-month lease and it was like $82 a month. If we bought it outright, it would be closer to like $2,500. To me, that seems more logical than leasing an item. And I know John had mentioned during our department head meeting, there's ARPA funds available. And obviously I'll put that in my little wish list for that. But in the meantime, I wanted to put it in the budget. I use a very small letter opener. It's not very user friendly for the amount of mail that we do get.
Plus
The sizes.
yeah, the diversity of mail that you guys
Sizes,
receive.
Tiny envelopes, the big ones, and so I think it would just speed up the process of opening the mail.
So I'm looking here
Mhm.
and it looks like in the budget, and I might have an older version of it, but it looks like the change was 11,500.
Yes, because I also put,
The new mail machine.
the upgrade in the furniture in the
Oh,
department.
yes, of course. Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
Ann and Kay had given me what Patrick had spent
Mm-hmm.
last year. So I used that sort of as a ballpark figure, knowing full well that prices have changed everywhere. And it's just kind of, obviously, I don't need as much as Patrick did.
Yeah.
But I needed to put something in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
Obviously,
have a different office configuration, so.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, and
they
two, we
do.
were talking about possibly, there's a couple different places around town hall that are looking to do that.
Mhm.
So we might be able to do a bigger bid and maybe save a little money there. But just kind of bringing everybody's, desk and making sure it has a standing option and a chair that's adequate.
Ergonomics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
they're like 35 years old.
yeah, exactly. So it's,
Older than maybe some of you in the room, but we're not gonna go there, we're not gonna go there. So that's probably the largest thing in my budget, other than the personnel services. Contract, I had put in the perspective that Kay had gotten on the letter opener, had a 200 and, I think it was $25 maintenance fee in there. What I think that's in there for is if you lease it, they probably require you to have a yearly maintenance program on it, which I don't know how often a mail letter opener would, break down.
well, the idea too is to see, what the maintenance look like and.
Right, and
Lori
it's
does a
something
great
very
job
simple,
maintaining
like
the
you're
current.
just oiling I can't even sharpen the one I have now, so I don't know. I would have, but I can't. So that's, the contract changed a little bit on that, because I added that in. Obviously, that might be an item that it's a one-time only thing, we can see that it's something that we can take out of it.
Yeah.
We don't need it every year, if.
Yeah, we'll
decide
get a
that.
sense of it though.
Office supplies changed a little bit. Obviously, paper products are just exorbitant now. We do use a lot of, I try to print off of the main copy machine if I have a large printing, because it's more efficient, quicker. You can print front and back that you can't in my office. So
Yeah.
I will use the main copier when it's anything like that. Seminars changed a little bit, going to Ithaca again next year, God willing. So that changed a little bit. Dues are the same. My IT is the same. Print ads, I think pretty much stayed the same. for my legal notices. Personnel services, I have Sharon in my budget. I also put a line in there, trash and brush, because she works, you know, side by side with me, and it's hard for Ann to see what she's doing, even though it falls, I believe, probably falls under your line item. I did put in this year for her for 6%. She's gone through
Yeah.
an enormous amount of work with the trash totes. Her records are immaculate.
It really was impressive to see how she was able to handle.
She follows up, the residents really love that she gets, and really, she felt bad during that whole crunch where she was getting over 100 phone calls a day, not to mention the emails. And she was trying to handle them all by herself, and fortunately Kay helped, Susie helped. Reba came in and helped, especially when we were doing the totes, you know, and switching out and whatever, and we've done hundreds of those.
Yeah.
as Susie.
Yeah, it's been quite a few, yeah.
She's signed up over 200 new enrollees, so she takes that, she does all of that, follows up with everybody, and she's done a tremendous job just in the trash area as the liaison.
Yeah.
Fields a lot of questions.
So you put in for 6% for her, but it only comes out to 2% overall for the whole department?
Well, because part of her is under the trash and brush line, which would fall under Ann's line, not mine.
Yeah.
So we split it, and split her salary between me, and there will be a line on there that says half of her salary.
She's
comes
2
on
half-time people.
Okay, but on the other, I mean, you're in your department, right?
She's
So
in my
but you would-
department with me.
But you, so are you not getting 4%?
I put her down for 6 for the whole thing.
So for what was the increase for your?
For
I
yours?
put down, I think 5.5 for me, and Reba I put down 4. She's my part-time seasonal person. I've had her in more this year because she's had to help Sharon out with, she's done a lot of the inputting of the trash totes. So that was the other larger increase, was my personnel line. And I know they've done the pay equity surveys. that
Yeah, so
you're
we'll
going
have
to
some different
review.
feedback from that
And you'll
too.
get feedback from that. And as we discussed in our small meeting, you may find that I've underestimated through the years. You know?
No.
Because the employees here really haven't been in, as John, as I told you, Town of Manlius is the three-headed monster. You've got the police, the highway, and then you've got us. So.
Yeah.
It's just trying to bring some of the people up. When you have someone that's worked, Sharon's been here 12 or 13 years, and there's people making more money.
I just wanted to, because it says 2% on this front page, so I just wanted to make sure that you actually got 4% at least, you know, but I just wanted to make sure it wasn't,
Yeah, that's.
it wasn't being, you
on
weren't
that
shorting
front
yourself.
Page. I'm hoping that's not last year's that I gave you. I don't think so. Bottom line on yours, Alyssa, does it say 112, 311?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yes, and then that, I'm not against your
No,
percentage
no, no.
increase. I just wanted to make
No.
sure that you actually got
Yeah.
you got the right percentage for yourself too. I just want to make sure you're
So-
giving yourself the accurate amount.
So Laura, I would, it's hard to say it's over, but the September 1st was sort of the end of the trash and brush transition. But now you're into collecting taxes, so I don't know when it would be realistic, but I think it would be very helpful to the town to have a formal report on the transition to the bins and how many calls were processed and how many bins were changed and all that. And I think that she has all that information, but this week is probably not the right
Yeah.
time to ask her. So I'm just wondering, when do you think that would be feasible?
Actually, because it was split, Susie was doing a lot of phone calling, Kate
We
was
can-
doing a lot.
Yeah, what we'll do.
John would have that.
Yeah, we'll get a
Put
sense
all
of
that
it, because I think
information.
what we'll have to do is we'll have to look at outcomes more so.
Mhm.
Because we had some folks that called 4 or 5 times,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll definitely put something together as kind of a
Recap. Or,
recap, but also, hey, when you're considering future trash bids and,
I think
swapping
other
out-
municipalities would be very interested in our experience.
Yes, they are. I have had lots and lots of questions
But I
about
think
that.
we, also just to reflect the extra effort that went in this year, I think
Yeah.
it'd be valuable to put something on our website that says, this is what we did.
Yeah, we could probably
So
put in,
John will have to give us those numbers, because anything we input via the website, you wanted to switch out your
Yeah.
totes and whatever, we only have what we did ourselves, but then Susie did.
Yeah,
it
so what we'll do
and
is we'll
Kay
put something up there that says, with this process, we enrolled 200 something new
Mhm.
people. We also facilitated 700 plus swap outs and things like that. That way we can kind of
Yeah.
give a sense of,
But I think a little graphic and then in the newsletter, fall newsletter, we could feature that.
Yeah.
and say this is what happened. I mean, I think it was a big deal.
it was.
Yes, and you guys handle it
We
well.
are getting calls now about when they're being.
Which
switched
we
out.
did just receive communication. We're gonna, they're sending us in batches now as to who's gonna be swapped out. I think they're doing it, a little bit by service day, but also I think by neighborhood
Mhm.
as conveniently as possible. Cause it is,
It's another truck going around.
oh yeah, and it's, the totes are very large. And so I don't know how many they can handle at a time, but it's not more than 12 or 20 maybe totes at a time. So there's a lot of trips.
You have to like take the old ones and put the new
Yes.
ones.
Yeah, which makes it even trickier because the smaller ones take up less space in the truck
Yeah.
and they have to make sure.
Mhm.
So we just got, I want to say it's 126 folks
Mhm.
out of about 700, maybe 750 at this point. We did receive a number of calls for folks that said, I asked for smaller totes, but these totes are working for me. So we're gonna be doing an email out to everybody tomorrow to talk about to just say, hey, if you see this email and you're aware of the situation, please let us know. And then sometime next week, we'll start making phone calls. And then by the end of next week, there'll probably be a list of 20 or 30 people and I'll probably either send them a letter or go just knock on their door over the weekend and talk to them. Just so that everybody knows how that's gonna work out. Yeah. And as soon as we have that email out, we'll include you guys on it so that you know.
So that.
And then
she'll start
really
getting calls.
Moving forward, any of those calls is you just have them send right to Susie and she'll be able to manage those phone calls. Cause
Okay.
like I said, it's gonna be a rolling basis. It'll take
Mhm.
a little while, but we'll get to everybody.
The other question, I don't want to get off the budget thing, but Sharon was curious. Have the homeowners associations approached you, some of the ones that wanted to opt in?
Yep, any of the HOAs that were interested, we have them and they're included in that list that we sent over.
Okay,
I think some of those are gonna get their own delivery dates, just because it's so much more convenient.
Possibly
'cause-
not like new homeowner.
the new homeowners
No.
that are going to have to pay for it, that are in these homeowners associations is what she's concerned about.
Okay, I'll talk to Syracuse Haulers. If it's in a similar situation, we'll likely be able to get them included. But for a lot of the HOAs, I did receive just a list from them. They had done the outreach, person to person, so we have those lists and we forwarded them over.
It would be interesting to see how many people did sign up because of the new system.
Yeah, it was just, so I think signups about 700 and then so the HOAs are a separate piece. So we'll know overall how many.
What?
Deadline for county.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we
to
should put a
sign people up,
reminder.
there's a deadline to put him on as a special district or else we have to direct bill them in January.
What is the deadline to opt out?
It's
It's September.
It's
Oh, and it's
September 1st.
already September. Jeez, that was just bad.
Yeah.
to opt
Got
out,
another
yes.
reminder, but nope.
And Sharon's got a small way that the county will allow her to input all special districts.
I see.
Most of them are shut out now, but trash and brush, Don allows her to fluctuate and he will put them in for her if she's, so if there's any HOAs that are thinking about joining.
So
those-
is this people who have been previously taking their trash privately and now
Yes,
they have the option? to
like
turn that-
let's just say Avriel
Mhm.
has a private contractor. And some of the residents there may not be happy with it, and they want to switch out of that private contractor and fall under our umbrella.
Mhm.
There's a certain process that
But they have to
Sharon,
do it that now
they would have,
or before
to be
September
put on their
1st.
tax bill, they would have had to have had it. Other than that, we have to direct bill.
Yeah.
In January. So, yeah, that ship's kind of sailed.
I know any of the HOAs I spoke with they were already receiving the services and, we had a couple of issues with private drives and stuff that were all kind of shored up. They were taken care of.
Now, when new people move to the town of Manlius and they're they just assume someone's gonna come and pick up their trash. If they're in a house where it was in the trash service before, do they automatically get in?
If it's on their tax bill, they'll automatically be in now. These 200+ people, not all of them were getting theirs for free, William. If they signed up, see the totes, the delivering of the totes brought this to the forefront.
exactly.
Because that's when we found out, because truly, if you're in escrow, a lot of times you don't even look at your bill, you wouldn't even know, you just put your trash out, because your neighbor did.
Mhm.
And so that's how that has come. Now, if you're in a new development that had no services yet, then Sharon gives you the prorated amount, and then if it was within the deadline time, she would get you on so that it would be on your bill in January. If that has ended, if Don usually will allow her to put a few more on. If that happens where that is cut off, then we direct bill in January. For that.
But that would basically, in this circumstance, would be for a brand new home, because if the previous owner was in the district, it would, the new owner would just.
Yeah, they-
Yes, yes, it would just roll right over.
That was, and that's what
Because
we
they have
found,
the
is a lot of
tools.
folks, they just, you know, they didn't know that they weren't
didn't.
enrolled.
Well, they didn't know that they were either, like most people just never pay attention to it.
Yeah,
Well, they don't look at, sometimes people really scrutinize their tax bills and other, to be honest, they think the Onondaga County Sanitary on their bill is trash. And it's really sewer, it's a sewage treatment plant. That's what it, so, you know, you see sanitary. and you think
Yeah.
it's trash.
There's another educational, take your tax bill. what
Yeah.
what is everything?
Yeah.
That's another educational thing.
Yeah, we have to, yeah, the trash is separate on there.
Yeah, so we could do a thing with, this is what this is, this is what this is. That'd be a good little educational thing before January when everybody gets the tax bill.
That's a good idea. We could probably put something up on the website.
The only time I get my trash bill is when it's stamped paid.
That's, and file it, right? That's what most
That's what I
people ask from do, they don't really look at it,
yeah.
you know.
Okay, any other questions looking at the overall budget?
I like how you actually broke out all of your office supplies.
Well, Ann asked us to do that a long time ago, and I just have always kept doing it. I mean, I know some people just put a lump sum in there and you have no idea what's in there. but
Very helpful.
I try to comply. Believe it or not, I try to comply.
Yeah, we discussed this several times over the year, and it's now budget workshop time. There's no surprises here. It's everything just as discussed all year long.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing is the revenue, which I think you might have that, Alyssa. The penalties and interest fall under there's a big revenue form.
Oh, I saw that.
And this year I went with 73,000, that's combined property tax and school, the revenue that we would generate through penalties and interest.
Oh, okay, that's what it is.
So, at property tax time, we did about 21,200. School, obviously, because the bills are higher, we usually generate a little more, so I'm usually a little more cautious, but this year I bumped it up to 73, because we ended up, I think, with 71,000 last year.
Okay.
So I thought, tax rate, even though it went down, all the assessments went up, so.
Yeah, so I think that makes sense. There's a.
Because I know you use that money to kind of offset other items in budget, so I just don't want to give you a high number that's not gonna.
No, I think the 73,000 is right on track. It's exactly what we, it's the range that we expect, and I don't think it's too high, but.
Anything else? Thank you for your time. If you have any other questions?
Sounds good. I'll be
Thank
very
you.
well.
Have a good evening.
All right, 45 minutes?
Well, you get to spend more money than anybody else.
I do. I spend a lot of money. that's for sure. First of all, I guess let's give you the upgraded version of this, the cleaned up version as of today. So. Here's me. You. And sir, you got the scribbled version, I think you and John already, right? So, yeah.
Yep.
I'll clean it up, at least get some of the typos out, some of the notes that I made for myself and all those things.
As long as you keep the colors in, that's.
I kept the
all right.
colors, kept the grass, kept all that basically the same, so there's my cheaters on here, so. Anyway, obviously, I guess I want to give a quick somewhat update here. With Janet's situation as far as retiring in July, so we kind of started working on this back in May. Or June, end of May, early June. Started putting all the pages back together, bringing everything over from last year. And then we got Monica involved, and those two kind of worked on it a little bit too. So overall, I gotta thank both of those guys, and Monica's really done well as far as kind of trying to pick up where Janet left off. I'm really happy with what's going on in progress in the short amount of time that she's been there.
Yeah.
And I know Sarah's been down a couple times, talked to her, and like I said, I think she's doing a wonderful job. With that being said, I spent way more time on this than I did in the last few years. So with that being said, I'll go down through, I guess the easiest thing to do is just like we always have, is kind of walk down through a lot of pages line by line. So basically the transportation portion of it would be my pay, the secretary's pay, conferences, association dues. Obviously on John's recommendation to put in the 4%. I put that in for the secretary, myself, the tree commission secretary. I think we left that alone. So other than that, there's a $96 increase in the conference and seminars, and that's just basically the increased cost of the state association and or the county meetings that we go to. So there's only those two conferences here, one in spring and one in the fall. So we're moving right along with the garage building fund. Sarah, John, and I kind of sat down and we looked at a couple of things that we want to try and do in the facility itself. It's getting to a point where we have to do some more work on the heating portions of it. They're getting pretty outdated, so it's a lot of it we've done ourselves. So we're going to try and continue to do that. So I put about the extra cost there would be the $10,000 for those heater replacements. Again, that's not replacing everything. That's only a small portion of continuation of what we've done over the last 4 or 5 years. We're also been updating the LED lights in facilities. So we've gone from the old vapor style lights to the LEDs. So I just kept that 4,000. I carried another 4,000 into this year's budget. So therefore, those are the two major increases in the capital building expense. So instead of going line by line here, guys, I kind of highlighted some of the things that obviously were a little bit more, we went up about $500 in that building maintenance fund. Simply just because of the cost of doing business is that much more, I spent about $9,000. We haven't finished out this year on just what we've done. We did some work on the fuel pump out back. We had the tank resealed. So that's the kind of stuff that we use that for. The hot seat steam machine, those things are getting pretty old, so we'll be looking to probably update that kind of stuff. But other than that, there's really no maintenance contracts. We did change over to Davis Ulmer. We had Time Warner was doing our fire. They changed over because they just simply weren't taking care of anything for us. Time Warner, you call and ask, and we went through months of the alarm going off, and we kept calling them, and yeah, we'll be here in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. No, they never show up. So we called Davis Ulmer, who does our inspections anyway on the sprinkler system. So they're taking care of the actual alarm system now.
So then I think the biggest increase in that one was the gas and electric, and we all.
Yep, gas and electric, obviously,
No surprise
like I
there.
say, and you can see there, I kind of left the notes there, you know, I mean, you're looking at about a 12% increase, you know, since January already this year.
Yeah.
So I kind of kept going in that trend. Obviously, we put another $4,200 for an increase in that, and again, it's all gamble.
Yeah.
You just don't know where we're going to be, you know, when it comes to that, but I think it's obviously an educated guess of where we are and where the trend is here, so. Other than that, I don't see anything really more on the garage end. That had anything major as far as any big upgrades there. So I'll go to the DA machinery, which is the new equipment.
We have a tech page.
There's a tech page, so yeah, you're right, Lisa, I kind of over the tech page, that was basically for our GPS units. We're gonna add 3 more units this year. So that's where your increase is there. The internet, we kept, I think it's the same amount as what it's been, so hasn't been a real increase in that. But again, we're gonna add 3 more GPS units to the newer vehicles that we've got that we didn't put them in. So that's really where the cost is. Other than that, everything else pretty much stayed the same as last year.
How many of our vehicles have GPS in them?
What's that?
How many currently have
I
GPS?
would say 80% right now of all my big trucks have them. Probably half the pickups as far as the 550s. You know, anything we plow with on a daily basis in the winter pretty much has the GPS system in. So I guess moving along here to the 5130, which is the new equipment. I'm pretty sure most of the board understands how we've been doing this over the last few years, and this is the area where we did the letter of intent for the new cab and chassis here a few months ago. So that'll be for that replacement of that 6-wheeler at $120,000 for just the cab and chassis. The partial plow body equipment, the 80,000 there that we're allocating for that is basically for the dump body and the hydraulics for the truck. And then you'll see, I kind of put a note on the side there that 34,000 for the plow equipment will come out of that 5142, which is that winter account. And I'll show you again how we kind of came up with that. And I think everyone's fairly familiar with how we've done this over the last few years. And just to keep everything in line, I think, I know I talked with Sarah and John, because of the way the purchasing is gone so long. I mean, you're almost looking at almost 2 years out, 4 or something now, you're looking at 2 years from now to do something like that. So we're gonna try and hopefully in the future, put some sort of a capital account together to where we can put so much money each year in that. And then when these vehicles are coming in, then we'll still go through the same process.
It'll give us a lot more flexibility for long-term
Approval, you know, as far as asking for the purchases of that stuff, and you still budget that way. But I think in general, to have that money funded, and I think you're gonna see most of the municipalities going that direction, so. You know, I talked to the comptroller's office, I know that they're looking into finding a little bit different ways and a little bit easier ways for us to try and purchase this equipment. Because not only just the cab and chassis, when you go to put that plow equipment on, the cost of steel is just skyrocketed, so you don't know what it's gonna be from year to year. So that's a real big concern. I'm fairly comfortable going into 23. They locked us into that price for that cab and chassis with the letter of intent. And I think we're gonna be okay with that, you know, 80,000 plus the 34. The other one's for a 550 for a cab and chassis for one of the new 550s. And then it'd be plow equipment would be that 7,000 for the plow for that. So hopefully that should take care of our new equipment going into 2023, keeping in line with that replacement schedule. Other than that, the other big one there is in the equipment repair down to the 0.440. And looking at our paver's almost 16 years old. I remember it's used only in summer. But we're getting to the point where we really got to do some work on it. The chains for the delivery of the material to the back of the vehicle is getting pretty well worn. So we're gonna look to try and replace those. The heater boxes on the burner boxes are pretty well shot. So we've got some other things we want to try and upgrade and maintain, try and change some of the hydraulic stuff on it. So I allocated to 24,000, almost just short of 25,000, 24,956 for the refurbishing of that new paver, the paver, our old paver. Just looking at costs of pavers right now, you're looking at $425, $450 for something that's probably a year too old. So it's,
So this really plays into Rob's strategy of maintaining our equipment, keeping it as.
yeah, I mean, you know, certainly we're gonna get a decent buck for ours when we trade it in, or at least I'd like to think so, but again, it's an older piece of equipment.
Well, especially now, it's just, this is the time where we doing some maintenance to keep it on the road rather than.
Yeah,
looking
I'm
at
hearing
purchase.
another 3 to 5 years out of that paper without putting anything crazy into it.
Yeah.
Pretty comfortable by saying that. Again, you know, the tractor portion of that paper does not have that many hours on it compared to most paving companies. Again, because it doesn't get the hours that these contractors are putting out.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just the wear basically of the screed and the rear portion of the paver. So we're gonna do some work on that hopefully in 2023. So that's why that one was allocated. Truck and car repair went up about $9,000. Just in general, it's costing more to do business when you send these things out. Anything that goes out of the shop, you're looking, you guys see the bills.
Yeah.
Anything you go out, I just spent almost $18,000 on the repair of our loan, not here just only a week ago. They had it for 7 weeks, our payloader. So again, but to replace that payloader, you're looking at probably $275,000, $300,000 to replace that payloader.
Yeah.
So, you know, to put $20,000 in it to go another 5, 6 years, it's money in the bank.
Great deal.
So, hopefully there'll be a change in some of this equipment costs, but I have no idea what that's gonna be. So, other than that, tire repair, that's just in general, cost of tires have gone up. Just staying in line with our replacement of tires on the equipment. And that basically, it's fairly small, the $209 there, so. Any questions on machinery at all? Yeah.
Do we have contracts for this stuff, or do we just go to the store and buy it?
No, you got contracts on most, everything's on a county or state contract, or we purchase it off another, you know, the OGS contract, or we purchase it off a county contract. As far as repairs go, most of them have a contract.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're kind of limited to some of your pieces of equipment. I mean, you can only get them fixed in so many places.
Right, for the
So,
equipment, yeah.
yeah,
For tires, I was just like.
yeah, for tires, that's all county contract, state contract price, you know, anything we basically purchase is off the county contract, although we do use the national contract too, though. We can piggyback off of that contract too, so anything we can get a contract on, we do, that's for sure, so. So anyway, moving along with brush and weeds, obviously, we're all in agreement, we're doing the 24, 26, and the 2 for brush and weeds. I know, sir, you and I we didn't know what happened the 1 year or 2 years when the winter actually went into the brush and weeds. So we went over in the payroll. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast. You don't know what's gonna happen in the winter. So sometimes you do
can we just
go over.
Pause a minute and
Yep.
explain. Brush and weeds is a 2-week period
Yep.
of payroll. It actually doesn't mean that that's the only time they pick up brush and weeds.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, so it's basically, we just do it for our payroll, and for the budgeting purposes to split the year up. So you do 24 in the winter, 26 in the summer, and then 2 for the brush and weeds, so.
But they will pick up a tree that falls down in another week.
Yep. Next time of the year. So, this is just basically for budgeting in there. The biggest thing here, if you look at the contractual services, obviously you guys know, we just went out and did the bid for for Bartlett Tree Services, doing our tree work for along the sites, towns, right of ways. So we've got a little bit better figure there. I did go in with about 11,000, but I remember we have used that contractual service, which we used the county contract for the grinding of the brush pile behind the highway department. So that's a pretty big chunk of that. That runs anywhere between $8,000 and $15,000, depending on the size of the pile.
Yeah.
So, as you can see, it's $4.26 a gallon right now as of 9/1. It's at $4.26 a gallon. I went in at $4.50. Last year, we went in at $3 a gallon. It was over $5.40 a gallon at one point. You know, it's a gamble, whatever we do there, but you're looking at clearly a 50% increase in just fuel costs. So that's gonna be across the board the rest of the way out.
And then we had that was at 350 last time around.
I think we did 350 last year, 350 we went last year. It was up to 540 something, I think we paid at one point. That's why I said, you know, I look at this and we're at 426 again, and it's coming down a little bit. But typically the winter season.
Yeah, that'll probably
it'll
level off.
level off. So I think we're in the ballpark. I can't guarantee nothing. I mean, you just never know. All of a sudden, we're gonna be up at $6 a gallon. Who knows, you know? I never expected to do what it did this year, neither did you guys. So that's where we are with that. Just so everyone's understanding, this is back with the brush and weed, so that's where we take that, the tree supplies for the bare root trees for the tree commission, all comes out of that $2,000. You know, the seminars and conferences is for the tree commission there. Every once in a while, they do tend to go to a couple of those, so obviously that comes along with that, so. Other than that, if we stay pretty flat there, basically went up about $12,000, 12.5 that whole account, so I'm considering 50% of its fuel costs, so. Other than that, I guess we'll move on to the big one here, the winter one, so. I did leave the graphs in there too, so we can look at those, but, so, just running down through, obviously, the big one here is gonna be the fuel. I mean, you're looking at, we averaged 22,500 gallons basically during the course of the winter. And at that 426, you know, I put in the 450, so you're looking at a pretty good increase going into $33,000, $750 just in fuel costs alone. Which was roughly another tank of fuel, is really what it comes down to. So that's about what we're paying right now, is we're around $30,000 mark for 10,000 gallons. So that kind of gives you a comparison to that. The other one, obviously, everybody looks at the salt and sand material. I went from the 420 to 480. Again, remembering how that whole process goes, it goes from this fall into the winter, and then you're back to next fall again before we go in. So I expect an increase going in after September of next year of about 10%. And if you want to flip quick to the next page, I think they kind of a couple pages in. Let's see. Yeah, it's the one for the updated for the salt. If you go through the graphs there, I think
It's got the blue stripe on it.
yeah,
That one.
it looks like
Or what's
that.
what you got right here?
So basically, you can see where I took, right now, the contract price is at 44.28. You're looking at the fall, that's our averages and what we're using as far as tonnage wise. So we're looking at next fall at the 48.71. And then again, the 800 tons typically of the Clear Lane, which is it's got treated already with calcium. And then basically our calcium for our spray tanks and those types of things. And then the salt sand, or the sand itself is up to 14.35 a ton right now on that. Plastics are $1.45 a piece, just for those old plastic plastics. So that kind of breaks that down. So that's why we're at that $480,000 mark. So hopefully I explained that, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I want to make sure I went through with everyone. So fuel and salt, those are the two big ones there. The plow repair, equipment repair, we did go up about $1,800 in that. I mean, that's just, again, it's simply just the cost of the steel and what's costing us for equipment. Tires will pretty much stay across the board with that. We've got a bunch of stuff we've stocked. We replaced tires last year. So hopefully we'll go through the winter season, and next year we'll have to look at the tires a little bit closer with that. So other than that, I guess the other big one is the overtime. I can kind of run down through that. That's that next page here. This can get a little confusing in how we've done this over the years. So I'll try and explain a little bit better. So basically what we do is we take the 20-year average, so 99 to whatever here we're at, 21. And if you look at the next page, it shows the 8.26 per man per hour. I took and went back. This is something I've done over the last couple of years also. I go back about 3 or 4 years and look at the high of what it is. That's why you see the 8.53 there over the last 3 years. So I threw that number in. That's like pulling it out of the sky number. and use that number for our overtime hours. I'm pretty comfortable with where we're gonna be. Hopefully, we could be way over, we could be under. But I gotta have a number somewhere, so that's why I came up with the 8.53. So as you can see, we take the 8.53, divide it by the 24 weeks, and then divide that, by 22 guys, and that's what comes up with that cost. So,
Yeah.
So again, I think it's pretty fair. I don't know any other way of doing it, but I think it's, at least shows on the graphs of what we're doing here. I think that's about the best way to do it. Do the same with the double time. Actually, the double time, the most difficult part is to determine how many Sundays you're gonna be in, because you do the double time.
We
On
always have an
Sunday.
ice storm on Sunday.
Right, exactly. So, you take the average, it comes up to be at about an hour and a half per man, for the 24 weeks. So what I did is I bumped it up a little bit. I went to the 2 hours per man. Again, it's just taking that number out of the sky. But I'm again fairly comfortable, with that number. So if there's no other questions on the overtime or double time, I'll just continue on. So there's those graphs, we wanted to look at. I know Elaine likes the graphs too, so you're better at it than I am. So, but we've kind of laid it out is, how much material we're basically using over the last, since 2005. And the cost is kind of interesting there. You look at the cost of what the tons per ton was. So back in 2005, we're paying $31 a ton, and now we're paying $40.26 a ton. So, the other one is got the inches of snow. Salt usage graph is pretty self-explanatory over the years. It kind of just lays along that line. And the same with the average salt cost. Per ton. Kind of goes up, has its ups and downs, but it's a pretty flat level the last few years. So between that $45 and $40 range, somewhere along there. So debt services, hopefully there is none, so we're good there. Debt services. So looking at the summer, the general repair stuff, this is one that, obviously the increase in blacktop costs is just, the escalation was just absolutely nuts this year. We were up 820, 816, 820, something like that. So we're paying over $70 a ton. Actually, I brought that sheet with me. So we're actually paying right now for binders $67.66 a ton. And I believe for top, we're paying $71.96 a ton. So that was, and it was more than that earlier in the year. So this is this month's price. So obviously it's going to go down the closer you get to winter, the price will go down. So, so we basically just took the number and we took the road, the contractual, and I added about $26,000, which is about half a mile or so of top is basically what we're doing there. And then that road asphalt, we took 55,000, which gives you about 3/4 of a mile more than what we've been doing each year. Now, that's all going to depend on the price, come next spring. But again, and I'll show it as we get to the end here. We did have an increase in our CHIPS fund. So, we are one of the very few towns that still keeps our CHIPS fund as a revenue. And we budget for our summer paving basically through our budget process, which a lot of municipalities have gotten in trouble by not doing that. And you'll see a lot of the small ones still doing it. That's all they plan on using is their CHIPS funding for their highway budget. So, they're really struggling with that right now. As a matter of fact, the state is really kind of, and I'm sure you guys hear it probably at some of your conferences, is they really kind of frown upon those guys doing that. So, but anyway, the diesel cost is in there again. So for the summer, we average about 15,000 gallons during the summer. So, the increase there is about 22,500, again, just short of a full tank. By about 3/4 of a tank, more is what's going to cost us. So, other than that, I don't, the drainage catch basin, there's always kind of a question on that. I think I've explained it before. And I think Sarah and John are on board with it now. We do have the drainage districts throughout the town, obviously. What this covers is really what's not in the drainage districts. So there's a lot of areas in the town that aren't in those districts, which we still do the work in, so we'll pull that, money out of there. Any types of driveway pipes, those things we'll pull out of that account. Catch basin repair, basically comes out of that, so, for those areas. Other than that, again, I don't really see anything else that's really crazy there. I'm hoping, we did just short of 8.5 miles of repair this year with asphalt, and a little bit of oil and stone that we still got left to do. But we're gonna be just short of about 8.5 miles, somewhere in there. Okay, so I think as far as the summer personnel, we do add a little bit of overtime in there. It's really small. It's about 0.225% per guy. Comes up to be about a total of 15 hours, and that's if we have a storm or whatever, that gets us through. So that one's pretty easy. Other than that, those are all contractual numbers. We took these right off the contract. So we've had that mistake before in the past too. Like, we look back, we didn't change the number of the contract. So hopefully that takes care of that. Looking at the summary page, this kind of tells the whole tale. I've never done this before, so I want to make sure I don't confuse it. If you look at the very bottom number there, the 4.96%, that's what the actual increase is in this budget. But I did something I've never done. When I started looking at the revenue side, because we do have that increase in the revenue, which is right around 188,000 on the CHIPS fund side. So if you actually took the difference between the actual CHIPS increases, the difference is 29,000. It's really only 0.64% increase on the whole total budget. So don't look at that number, don't keep that number in your head, but it's just something to think about because we did have that increase in CHIPS. I don't want to dwell on that because again, we take that CHIPS funding as a revenue side. And I never threw that in there before, but I think just for information to the board, it was probably.
Yeah, I think
something
it's
good
a helpful
information
way
for
to
you guys
understand
have.
the actual dynamics of the budget.
Yeah, so I mean, the one side's coming in, the other side's going out, so it's really only about that 0.64% increase over the total budget.
And
If
even
we left it alone.
just seeing a 5% increase in expenditures with the way gas and asphalt.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the
it's-
fuel is at 50% increase. Most of your cost for your equipment, everything's gone up at least 12 to 15%. I know I sat here about, 3 months ago, we sat here, Caitlin was here, I was here about this cost explosion. I was going into a frenzy here, so because, everything was going skyrocketed here, so it kind of threw my budget awry here, so. Other than that, I guess, the only other thing we have is that revenue side that kind of show where that, the CHIPS was. See, last year, we didn't even put in for the Pave New York or the pothole program or the winter severity last year, because we had no idea because of COVID where that was all gonna fall. So when you start putting the numbers back in that we just got approved for the CHIPS funding, that's where that total number comes up. That's, 96,869 just in the reimbursement I'm sorry. Yeah, so it's 504 as opposed to 315 last year total. So it's $188,000 difference in the revenue from last year to this year. And again, it's not that we didn't get it last year. The fact of the matter is we didn't know we were going to get it, so we didn't budget for it last year. So, so this just kind of shows where that revenue side would be here this year.
Does the Pave New York, did that go in state aid right under CHIPS?
It is. So what they did, just so everyone knows, to that POP program that they're using, the pothole program this year, this is the last year that you can use it for any or all. This is not going to affect us. You can't, right now, you can use it for like brownstone and those types of things. Why they're doing this is just beyond me, but the bottom line is you can only use it for blacktop, for asphalt. So where it's not going to affect us because we do our own, But a lot of municipalities are upset because they put this program, I don't know why they just didn't put it in as part of the CHIPS. Because the POP program now is underneath the Pave New York. So when you file for your funding, it's all done underneath the Pave New York program. So the good part about it is we did get locked into a 5-year contractual with the state for the CHIPS funding. So we can at least guarantee for the next 5 years, we're gonna get CHIPS funding. Where we didn't, we haven't had that in place some time. So
But that's just for chips.
That's just for
not
chips, that's not for
chasing
pop,
away.
that's not, and obviously, John been involved with the negotiations with the county for the plowing of the county roads again this year. I think we're pretty comfortable, John, with what the numbers they're coming up with
Yeah,
now.
it's, so we had a 5-year contract that had, one of the major sticking points there was a renegotiation clause. I think if diesel went over $5,
Yeah,
and so we wanted to make sure we weren't getting ourselves into a situation where we would be negotiating a contract and then immediately renegotiating it.
right.
So we've got something that has been sent over. I've talked with Rob about it. It covers our costs. It's, and it looks like it's gonna be a 2-year contract to kind of get us through this kind of unknown period, and then hopefully we'll be able to come to a larger consensus.
Yeah, I think the consensus was the 5 years was just way too far out.
Yeah, we just don't know
To
what the
try and-
environment looks like.
It's so, the whole system is so vulnerable right now, so I think we're not the only municipality from what I understand.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversations about it amongst the supervisors.
That's what I had a question on was, if it increased, did it increase enough to cover our costs? And stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with that, Elaine, as far as the numbers that John and I talked about, it will cover our costs, We're one of the, and it's weird, a lot of townships, who do this with their counties. Oswego County will do time and material. Wayne County, I think, does time and material, but other counties will do it like we do by the mile. There's not really a good, easy way across the board to do it. There just simply isn't, because some municipalities will win. And when I say win, it means they don't go out as quite as much as maybe a municipality like ours, who has a lot more traffic, we have a lot more volume of traffic. So when and then you've got the lie factor, I guess we'll call it, is you can tell them anything. Yeah, I went out 9 times this week, or we went out 180 times this winter, and really you only went out 100 times. So there's just not a good, honest way to do it, other than the way I feel is you do it per mile.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you got a cost of what it's costing you basically to do it. Now, it's gonna cost me regardless, whether we're doing a county road or whether we're doing a town road, it's gonna cost so much a mile.
One in the previous contract too, we were well compensated.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't, it's not like there was a gap or anything, and we're seeing a nominal increase that'll keep us in that position where it is not costing us money to plow those county roads. It's fairly close to break even.
Yeah, it's about where we are.
Yeah, just
But
about.
again, it's an insurance policy, the way I look at it for your residents in the town.
Yeah.
And they're traveling county, state roads all the time, and other roads, so.
Yeah, and that contract doesn't have a fluctuating yearly,
No,
gas index or asphalt or salt index or anything like that. So we're in a pretty good spot. It hasn't been finalized with the county yet, but I'm confident that what we're gonna see is gonna be a good contract for us.
Other than that, does anybody else have anything good, bad, or indifferent on the?
We're sending some stuff to auction as well.
We
That was right there in
As a
the-
matter of fact, I probably won't bring it this week to the board or next week, I'll probably do the following board meeting. I know there's one of the trucks here, I think, Ann's gonna go. I think the comp's got a vehicle that's gonna go. I've got one pickup and possibly a 6-wheeler that's gonna go this year. Like, we're gonna get rid of our water truck. I've been holding on. I'm afraid to get rid of a lot of our big trucks because of just.
It could be years.
Well,
Jay.
the problem I have is getting a new one, number one, and then having a backup if one of my other trucks breaks down, we've got those spare trucks that we can still put equipment on and go get the job done. So, we're gonna have to figure out maybe a little bit better way of doing that. I'm just afraid to do it right now, to be honest with you. But this particular truck we're talking about, it's time. It's time. We're not probably gonna make $1 dollars on it, probably around 20,000-25,000, somewhere in there. If all goes well, but you never know with that auction either. You could get 50,000. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, my thought would be somewhere in that 20,000-25,000.
Why do you have a question mark next to the heater replacements?
Because when I first originally did that, we were gonna have a contract, we were gonna have a contractor come in and do it, 'cause we've done it ourselves. We've been replacing kind of, we rent a lift and we'll do it in the winter on our downtime. And we're gonna have a couple of guys who rip them down and do it. So I said to myself, am I gonna do that this year, or are we gonna have a contractor? Well, we started looking to find a contractor. Yeah, right. So we're gonna do it ourselves. Like I said, the contractors are they're so hard to get, and it's so expensive to have contractors come in and do that kind of work. So we're lucky. I mean, our guys, we've got some guys that got that, I mean, it's basically replacing the parts, the existing stuff that's there, with new equipment, and so those guys are pretty good to do that. I said, the building, and I know Sarah's looking at that, John's looking at that, we're looking to do some upgrades of the building, and hopefully we can use some of the ARPA funding and maybe get some grant funding to do some of those things over the next year or so.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think I've got everything out there that I can. Right?
Any other questions anyone has?
Nothing's missing, like no wish list items that are.
Oh, you don't
Missing.
want that one.
Yeah, no, Sarah's on top of that. We've got a
Yeah,
good.
Sarah's got it.
The-
I see a
the-
little bit of that already.
The wish list stuff is really the facility,
Yeah.
Yeah,
is
So-
trying to get something that is a cold storage facility as well as a new workspace to open up some of that room in the current garage.
Yep.
And that's, I think you sent that out today or yesterday. And it's a big undertaking, but we're having the conversation now so we can be prepared for that.
yeah, we're gonna have to put some money away, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How we go about doing that for the next few years, you know, what I mean, and how we fund it is one whole other thing, you know, but I know we're working at it and we're trying to do what we can. Tough to come up with, you know, big funding like that, that's for sure, especially with the lead time, so.
Yeah.
Well, I
Okay,
think that's one of the things that overall, we want to figure out the proper fund
Oh, capital.
capital.
Capital fund improvement plan.
Because you can do, for a building,
Yep.
there's rules, but we want to be able to do it for equipment and maybe others, maybe IT or other kinds of things that might be coming in the future, and just making sure we have the correct way of saving up for something so that when the year that you actually make the purchase, you are maybe only paying half of it and the other half has already been raised.
Just smooth everything out a little bit as much as possible. But again, with the way everything costs right now, it's so hard to.
it's the availability of getting things. I
Yeah.
mean, we've been doing replacements of buildings are adding on, I mean, it
Well,
may
you
take you a
can't-
year
yeah.
just to
Everything's
get everything in place.
late. I was
so.
just talking to somebody who was doing a renovation that was supposed to be done in July, and she's, they're still camping out. 'cause
Yeah.
it's not done.
Yeah, it's availability of getting stuff, that's for sure. So, and then getting contractors to do this kind of stuff too, so.
Are you seeing the pressure on that alleviated at all? Like, is it getting better?
As far as equipment goes, you mean, Kelly, or?
Like working with the contractors and their availability, or is it still just as bad? as
It's just as bad. Actually, it's gotten worse in the end of the purchasing side. I was talking to one of my vendors today who sells trucks. and He's telling me they're out 2 years right now. And the reason why he was telling me is because he doesn't get paid for his commission until that truck comes in. So, yeah, I mean, he's selling trucks 2 years out, so he's not gonna get paid for 2 years for the commission of that truck. So it's starting to affect those guys too. So I'm not sure how they're gonna change this. I really don't. I mean, it's happening all over. You know, I mean, even with our pickup trucks, it's even more happening with pickups and those types of things, because I think the dealers are just basically saying, okay, we got 20, why even bid all these municipal bids? When you get these trucks, we can put whatever price tag we want on them. That's really what's happening. So there's just, I mean, the chips obviously is the big thing, you know, the computer chips for these vehicles. They can't get them as quick as they can with vehicles. So, and then the cost on top of that is just astronomical.
Yeah, I think that the whole process is gonna be at least a couple years behind, because, the backlog,
Yep.
the demand. So, even though gas might be coming down and transportation might get easier, you're still gonna have that backlog of things to deal with, so.
Yeah, so I mean, is it getting easier to work with? Yeah, I think it is overall. We're trying to work through it the best we can, but the system itself is just out of whack. So hopefully that gets, and I think the control will help that too. So by changing some of the things that, as far as way the purchasing goes.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're not the only municipality that's thinking this, through this exact problem right now, so.
It's across the board. I
It is.
go to state association meetings and that's what you hear all the time. And like I said, the comptroller's office is usually at our meetings. And he's definitely talked about it. He's trying to work on it. So, it's something across the board for everyone.
All right,
All right.
thank you very much.
Right?
So that will conclude our first budget workshop for 2022, and
Stay
we'll
on
be
track.
back in a week.
You too.